The Mongol horde had never known true defeat. For decades, their thunderous hooves had shaken the foundations of kingdoms from the Pacific Ocean to the gates of Europe. Cities burned, empires collapsed, and rulers trembled at the mere whisper of their name. To face the Mongols in open battle was considered suicide. To defeat them was unthinkable. And yet, in the scorching valleys of Palestine in the year 1260, the impossible happened. At a place called Ain Jalut, the spring of Goliath, the Mongol war machine was not just halted, but shattered. This was not an accident. It was not luck. It was the result of a secret weapon, one that was not forged of steel, but of strategy, discipline, and ruthless understanding of the enemy. To understand why Ain Jalut mattered, we must first understand the Mongols themselves. By the mid-13th century, the Mongol Empire was the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Founded by Genghis Khan and expanded by his successors, it functions like a perfectly tuned engine of conquest. Mongol armies were fast, terrifyingly coordinated, and psychologically devastating. They relied on mobility, horse archers, feigned retreats, intelligence gathering, and a strict chain of command. They learned their enemies' weaknesses, exploited divisions, and punished resistance with annihilation. Against such a force, medieval armies, slow, fragmented, and bound by tradition, simply collapsed. After the death of Genghis Khan, the empire was divided among his descendants, but this division did not weaken Mongol power. Instead, it allowed simultaneous campaigns on multiple fronts. In the west, the Mongols crushed the Khwarezmian Empire, annihilated Russian principalities, and smashed European armies at Legnica and Mohi in 1241. In the Middle East, the Mongols advanced like an unstoppable tide. In 1258, they captured Baghdad, the heart of the Islamic world. The city was sacked, its libraries destroyed, and the Abbasid Caliph executed. The shockwaves of Baghdad's fall echoed across the Muslim world. Many believed this was the end of Islamic civilization itself. Following Baghdad, the Mongols pushed westward into Syria. City after city surrendered or fell. Aleppo was stormed. Damascus capitulated. The Mongol commander Hulagu Khan appeared invincible. His army included not only Mongols, but also subject peoples, Armenians, Georgians, and even Christian crusaders, who saw the Mongols as potential allies against Islam. Nothing seemed capable of stopping them. But history is shaped as much by timing as by power. In 1259, news reached Hulagu that the great Khan Mongke had died in China. This triggered a succession crisis. According to Mongol custom, major leaders were expected to return to Mongolia to participate in the election of the next great Khan. Hulagu withdrew the bulk of his forces eastward, leaving behind a smaller but still formidable army in Syria under his trusted general, Kitbuka Noyan. Kitbuka was no minor commander. He was a veteran Mongol general, fiercely loyal, highly experienced, and utterly confident. He had never known defeat. Though his army was smaller, perhaps 10,000 to 20,000 men, it was still a Mongol army, and that alone struck fear into the hearts of his enemies. Opposing him was a power that had risen unexpectedly from the ruins of chaos, the Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt. The Mamluks were unlike any other army of the medieval world. They were slave soldiers, taken as boys from the Eurasian steppe, the Caucasus, and Central Asia. Ironically, many from regions once dominated by the Mongols themselves. Purchased, converted to Islam, and trained relentlessly, Mamluks lived for war. They were expert horsemen, archers, and disciplined fighters. Their loyalty was not to family or tribe, but to their unit and their sultan. By 1260, the Mamluks were led by Sultan Saif ad-Din Qutuz, a man forged by tragedy. Qutuz himself had once been a slave, possibly captured by Mongols during earlier invasions. He understood Mongol methods, not as a theorist, but as a survivor. When Mongol envoys arrived in Cairo demanding surrender, as was customary, Qutuz did the unthinkable. He had the envoys executed, and their heads displayed on the gates of the city. This was a declaration of war, and a point of no return. The Mamluks knew they could not wait. If they allowed the Mongols to regroup, Egypt would fall just as Baghdad had. Qutuz gathered his forces and marched north into Palestine. Alongside him was one of history's most brilliant battlefield tacticians, Baybars al-Bundukdari. Baybars was aggressive, cunning, and deeply familiar with steppe warfare. He had fought crusaders and understood mobility and deception. Together, Qutuz and Baybars prepared to do what no army had ever done before. The secret weapon that would destroy the Mongol horde was not a new technology. It was something far more dangerous to an enemy who believed himself invincible. The deliberate use of Mongol tactics against the Mongols themselves. The battlefield of Ain Jalut was carefully chosen. Unlike the wide-open plains favored by Mongol cavalry, Ain Jalut lay in a valley surrounded by hills, broken terrain, and narrow approaches. It restricted movement and limited visibility. The Mamluks arrived first and took up concealed positions. They split their army, hiding a powerful reserve force behind the hills. This was a calculated risk, but also a trap. When Kitbuka advanced, he saw what appeared to be a smaller Mamluk force ahead. Confident as ever, he ordered an attack. The Mamluks engaged briefly, then did exactly what the Mongols themselves were famous for. They retreated. To the Mongols, this was familiar. Feigned retreats were their signature move. Enemies who chased them usually found themselves surrounded and annihilated. Kitbuka took the bait. He pursued. As the Mongol cavalry surged forward, the valley closed around them. The Mamluks turned and counterattacked, their horse archers unleashing disciplined volleys. Then, at the decisive moment, Baybars gave the signal. The hidden Mamluk reserve charged from the hills, slamming into the Mongols' flanks and rear. For the first time in their history, the Mongols were caught in their own trap. The fighting was brutal and chaotic. Dust choked the air. Horses screamed. Arrows darkened the sky. The Mongols fought fiercely, but they were hemmed in, unable to maneuver freely. Their command structure began to break down. Kitbuka, refusing to retreat, led from the front. When urged to withdraw, he reportedly replied that Mongols do not flee. That decision sealed his fate. As the battle raged, Sultan Qutuz himself entered the fight. At a critical moment, when some Mamluk units wavered, Qutuz removed his helmet and rode forward shouting, "Wa Islama! O my Islam!" His personal intervention rallied the troops. The line held, the Mongols began to collapse. Kitbuka was eventually captured. Brought before the Mamluk commanders, he remained defiant to the end. He was executed, and with his death, organized Mongol resistance in the region crumbled. Survivors fled north. The Battle of Ain Jalut was over. The Mongols had been decisively defeated in open battle for the first time. The consequences were enormous. Mongol expansion into the Middle East was permanently halted. Syria returned to Muslim control. Egypt was saved. The psychological aura of Mongol invincibility was shattered. From this point on, the Mongols could be resisted and beaten. But the true significance of Ain Jalut lies deeper. The secret weapon was not numbers, nor terrain alone. It was adaptation. The Mamluks studied their enemy, matched their speed, copied their tactics, and then improved upon them with discipline and timing. They understood that fear was the Mongols' greatest ally, and that once fear was broken, the horde could bleed. In the centuries that followed, the Mongol Empire would fragment and decline. But at Ain Jalut, history pivoted. One valley, one battle, one moment when the unstoppable was stopped. And in that moment, the world learned a lesson written in blood and dust. Even the greatest war machine can be destroyed if you understand its soul better than it understands yours.